The perimeter begins all the way back here near the lake. It is 1.7 square miles, nearly all of downtown Cleveland. These protesters are some 3/4 of a mile from the queue. If the people attending the Republican National Convention don't come out of the arena, they're not going to see or hear these protesters that are being kept back. That's why they're hoping to get them as they walk to other events outside the arena. But remember, they're not the intended audience. The media is. These are some of the 2,500 police officers who've been brought in to help the Cleveland Police Department. These men and women are from the California Highway Patrol. The police have deployed hundreds of bicycles because they've proven effective in other cities at crowd control. The bike can be used almost as a cavalry type unit to get officers around where they're needed quickly, but they can also dismount and then use the bike to create a temporary blockade. Cleveland is not expecting any snow this time of year, but trucks like this loaded with gravel could help prevent a Nice-style attack where someone would either try to ram the participants or try to get through the barricade. And this is where the public simply cannot go. That's where you need some sort of credentials to get in. Either you're a delegate or media or an attendee. All over this city there are signs saying "Welcome to Cleveland." But then there are also signs of security. It is a tough balance to strike for any city, but especially in times like these. In Cleveland, I'm Brendan Keefe. The insurrection on the floor of the GOP convention is the most public display in decades of arcane rules that leave us with essentially two pre-selected candidates for president.
There was an attempt to overrule the decision of the Convention Rules Committee.
Those opposed shall say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
And they lost.
The Republican Party is like its own little world. So is the Democratic Party, because there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that says how political parties are supposed to pick their nominees or anything about political parties at all. They're free to pick whomever they want and to set their own rules. But eventually, both parties will have to come back down to earth. That is because they're going to have to convince the rest of America that their candidate deserves to be president of the United States. The future of the nation is now in the hands of convention delegates who are unknown strangers to most voters. Some volunteered and pledged to support specific candidates who then submitted a slate of such supporters as their delegates to the convention.
You sign up with a campaign to be a delegate. They file a slate of candidates for delegate. Whichever candidate wins the Ohio primary, their candidates go to the convention as delegates.
And Ohio is winner take all, which means every Ohio delegate will be voting for Governor John Kasich as the nominee.
Well, that's what the rules require.
Those same rules prevent bound delegates from switching their vote. No matter how the individual feels, they have to vote as their state voted.
People need to understand there are only 56 people casting ballots.
Those are the state and territory chair people. The delegates don't cast votes on the first ballot. The suspense of a shouting match on the floor of the convention may be sound and fury signifying nothing. In Cleveland, I'm Brendan Keefe. Trump's children are escorted through downtown Cleveland. The dignitaries whisked through special steel chutes just before a group of protesters approached the area, a delicate dance. Police have literally set up two lines here so that dignitaries, guests, and delegates can get through to the security screening area. It's a tight squeeze. There are lookouts on rooftops all over downtown, overwatch for police and federal agents. We're not saying exactly where, but you need only look up. There are 3,000 local police deployed to protect the convention and 3,000 more federal officers and agents, which means for every officer you do see, there is likely another you can't. Some blend well into the crowd of delegates and media, others do not. Much of this security serves as a visible deterrent. The rest is covert. Barely visible cameras, barely visible snipers. Police sharpshooters stand ready to react from above at a moment's notice. This machine in a local park is labeled as an air quality monitor for the city, but look closer and you'll see a Homeland Security inventory tag. The first line of defense is detection, complete with portable air defense radar on the roof of a downtown building. But look up and you'll see something else there, a reminder of why all of this is needed in the first place. At the Republican National Convention, I'm Brendan Keefe. It's official. Melania Trump's speech at the Republican convention was plagiarized from Democratic First Lady Michelle Obama.
My parents impressed on me the values that you work hard for what you want in life, that your word is your bond, and you do what you say and keep your promise.
Many phrases nearly word for word. Trump staff writer Meredith McIver wrote, "This was my mistake." But who is Meredith McIver? We went to Nexus, a comprehensive database, to check her background. The 65-year-old is listed as a Trump staff writer who is also a registered Democrat. 3 separate voter registrations on Nexus show she's been a Democrat for 2 decades. Republican delegates seem to have no idea they were listening to words taken from a Democratic First Lady by a Democratic staffer loyal to the Republican nominee.
The only limit to your achievements is the strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
The work on that line was done by Michelle Obama's speechwriters, spoken by Melania Trump 8 years later. The person who lifted the words, Meredith McIver, wrote, "No harm was meant." The Democrat added, "I feel terrible for the chaos I have caused Melania and the Trumps, as well as to Mrs. Obama." Democrats and Republicans in a rare yet bizarre behind-the-scenes display of unity that spilled onto the world stage. At the Republican National Convention, I'm Brendan Keefe. The race could come down to race, to black and white. In the latest polls, Clinton and Trump split the white vote down the middle. But whites make up only 2/3 of the U.S. population. 1 out of every 3 Americans identifies as either black or Hispanic. Traditionally, only 1 out of every 10 black voters goes Republican. But in the last 2 presidential elections, only 1 out of every 20 black voters picked the Republican candidate over Barack Obama. A recent NBC Wall Street Journal Marist poll shows Trump is getting about half the white vote. But with minorities, he's doing terribly after saying things like this.
Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
That same poll shows in swing state Ohio, where Trump was nominated at the convention, 0% of black voters are saying they'll vote for him. Donald Trump could win a majority of the white vote and still lose the White House. The Trump speech has already rippled out across the nation, but hours before it was delivered at the Q, we took a draft of the speech to the streets of Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a good speech.
We started close to the arena, where we found many Trump supporters.
I will restore law and order to our country. What I'm reading here is very substantial, very well written, very pointed. It's all really honest stuff.
Then we took Trump's script farther out to the public square, where both protesters
It's time to show the whole world that America is back.
And Trump fans were more skeptical.
So you don't want to see it?
Yeah,
You don't want to see it?
Meat is usually liars.
While Hillary Clinton plans a massive tax increase, I have proposed the largest tax reduction of any candidate.
I have a message to every last person threatening the peace on our streets and the safety of our police. I will restore law and order to our country. People of color, folks on the margins in our country. So where is that in the speech?
We took it to the margins, just 2 miles from the Q, but worlds away from the Republican convention.
I heard the same thing over and over and over. We're going to bring more jobs to America. We're going to build this country back up. Where is it?
George Fawcett is homeless, but not hopeless. Yet he doesn't believe Trump's words, or those from Hillary Clinton next week, will change anything on the street.
You can say anything just to get elected. I mean, come on now, that's politicians.
Does it make any difference who becomes president for you here?
You know what, this election, sir, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. Come on, man.
At the Republican National Convention, I'm Brendan Keefe. 19,252 emails, 891 documents stolen from the Democratic National Committee, then released right before the Democratic Convention. WikiLeaks is behind the release, but where did WikiLeaks get them? Someone, somewhere, hacked into one of the 2 largest political parties in the United States. This is the malicious computer code uploaded to the Democratic National Committee email servers. The code was discovered by the cybersecurity company CrowdStrike, hired by the DNC to track down the hackers and secure their systems. They traced this attack to at least two well-known and highly advanced hacking organizations. The hackers are Russian. CrowdStrike posted a blog more than a month ago with the permission of its client, the Democratic National Committee. Their investigation tracked the malicious code to two sophisticated hacking organizations codenamed Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear, both based in Russia. U.S. intelligence knows these two names well. At the White House, the Russian hackers successfully infiltrated unclassified systems, along with networks of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the State Department. Cozy Bear infiltrated the DNC servers last year, while Fancy Bear hit the same systems this year. We don't know if that's where WikiLeaks got the emails, but their release coincides with the start of the Democratic National Convention. Back in the 1970s, the Watergate break-in was designed to collect precisely these kinds of documents from the DNC. In the digital age, thieves don't need to physically burglarize the office. They can simply hack into the DNC from anywhere on the globe, even from Russia. At the Democratic National Convention, I'm Brendan Keefe. Tensions are high outside the convention because of security. One person, one vote. They're high inside because of politics. 5 rings of protection designed to keep everyone safe.
This was the entrance. It's locked down.
This is really the epicenter of security inside the hall, because on that podium this week, a very different situation than we had last week in Cleveland, where there was a potential future president and, of course, a potential future first lady. But this week in Philadelphia, we have the current president, the current first lady, a man who's an ex-president, and, of course, his wife, a potential future president. The barricades inside disguised in Democratic blue. Barricades outside protected by men and women in blue. So this is the inner perimeter. This is basically the last stop before you have to go through the full security to get into the arena. And here's why that last gap is so important. Essentially, we have protesters who are trying to access what's going on, and they are up against an entire line of police right now who are keeping them from the very doors of the Democratic National Convention.
Shut it down!
Basically, right now, there is a sit-in outside the Democratic National Convention. They're yelling, shut it down, but they cannot get inside the convention because of this line of police officers. Then the protesters start jumping the fence one at a time. Dozens end up in plastic cuffs. Again, this is the last barricade before you can enter that inner security perimeter, the last fence protecting the delegates and the other dignitaries inside. Tensions are higher than what we saw last week in Cleveland. Here, Democrats are demonstrating against their own party over emails that have already cost the DNC chairwoman her job.
Shut it down!
In Philadelphia, I'm Brendan Keefe. Bernie delegates walk out of the convention hall. But Sanders supporters are still claiming victory because they reshaped the Democratic Party and its platform.
Presuming Hillary becomes a president, we need to hold her to the platform that the Democratic Party has agreed to.
Have you read the platform?
I'm aware of several issues in it, but I have not seen it.
I think everything that I've seen, I like it. I have not read the entire platform, I'm sorry to say.
It's all hammered out. The Democratic Party platform. A political platform isn't something you stand on, but rather a declaration of what the party stands for. And it's made up of planks, individual policies that made the cut. A big win for Bernie Sanders, the $15 an hour minimum wage, now solidly attached to the Democratic Party platform. Democrats have always been against the death penalty, but now, thanks to Sanders, they're in favor of abolishing the death penalty in all 50 states. In universal health care, the public or government option is once again on the table and part of the platform. Bernie wanted free college education for everyone. In a compromise, he got free community college and debt-free college for everyone else. But it's all non-binding. What does that mean? It means Hillary Clinton can cross out any of these items that she wants and paint her own picture of America and of her campaign, regardless of what the platform says.
The people that Bernie brought in are definitely more progressive. I don't know if they're going to stick with the Democratic Party. That's the question.
At the Democratic National Convention, I'm Brendan Keefe. These delegates are at the epicenter of the political universe this week, but many are spending their time on the convention floor staring at their phones.
These are people who are just live at the convention, sharing their views, talking about what they're seeing.
Facebook Vice President of U.S. Public Policy Aaron Egan shows us the raw data.
Here we have Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. We can see that, for example, with respect to Donald Trump, over the past 30 days, there's been 37 million people who have been talking about Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton, over the last 30 days, we've seen about 29 million people talking about Hillary Clinton. We saw last week at the RNC convention, 28 million people were talking on Facebook about Donald Trump. 58% of those people talking about Donald Trump were women.
16 years ago, I was on the floor of this same arena covering the very first political convention that was covered by the internet. Now, this convention isn't in Philadelphia. It's on your phone.
This is live right now. This election is going to be the Facebook Live or just video live election.
This convention is being streamed live in 360-degree virtual reality. You choose the view, but you can also choose to look away. Wait, where are you going? See, we're no longer in control. You are in control of the view. But when literally every angle is covered, by choosing to look at one thing over another, you're viewing the world through a straw of your own making. Since January, Trump's Facebook page has 147 million interactions versus 41 million for Hillary's page. On Twitter, Clinton has 7.7 million followers, close to Trump's 10.2 million, but his interactions are more than double hers on Twitter, more than 50 million since January. Millions of people in separate social echo chambers, rarely interacting with those on the other side. In Philadelphia, I'm Brendan Keefe. Angelo's Diner, Glassboro, New Jersey, just outside Philadelphia, a place where time seems to stand still. But many working-class customers here feel they no longer have a seat at the table of America's middle class.
I've gone myself personally from making six figures to hoping to be making $50,000 in the span of 4 years.
Those labor jobs are no longer available as far as I see.
That center section that used to be the bigger section is shrinking.
They're right. While the economy is starting to sizzle again, the middle class is shrinking. The Pew Research Center defines the upper class as the top 20%, the lower class as the bottom 29% of earners, and the rest as the middle class, now 51% of all Americans.
About median income around here, you're talking about $48,000 to $58,000, but that's not going to get you very far.
According to the Pew study, $150,000 a year for a family of four living in Metro Philadelphia is still middle class, while the same family earning $50,000 a year would be in the lower class, not the middle. But even if you're making well into the six figures, you'd be hard-pressed to afford housing in the Philadelphia neighborhood where I'm driving right now. In what was, for 2 centuries, a working-class neighborhood of row houses, this neighborhood has turned a page where now a multi-family tenement like this goes for nearly $1 million. Back at Angelo's Diner, we discover what's eating the middle class.
I thought that that's where I was, but based off this area and the numbers that you've supplied as a working man with a skilled trade, that puts me in the poverty level.
It's not just about annual salary. Income is indeed the primary factor, but then there's also the regional cost of housing and how much the working class gets paid for a full-time job.
It's a feeling for a guy like me that I'm able to keep my head above water, but in reality, with the general population, I'm at poverty level. And that American dream is still out there, but it's less attainable than it was for my parents and my wife's parents and grandparents, of course.
It's about employers paying wages and candidates paying attention. Brendan Keefe, Glassboro, New Jersey.